Good day everyone. This is the continuation of the report related to the affective assessment. It is about gathering and interpreting affective data. First is the importance of genuine anonymity. When we say anonymity, it is about being confidential of private information. To be anonymous, it means you have the ability to voice your own opinions without the fear of judgment. So the identity of the students are unknown, and that makes it impossible for the teachers to trace their students. The importance and advantage of the teacher here is by making the students anonymous. In that way, the teacher can have truthful or honest responses to the given assessment, like some in affective inventories. In gathering and interpreting data, as a teacher, you should avoid the social desirability bias. The social desirability bias, this is the tendency of the students to respond in ways that they feel more appropriate. Sa tingin ng mga students, dapat yung mga responses nila are socially acceptable by the society or even their teachers. The social desirability bias is consist of the students' responses. This is called the socially desirable responses. Ito yung mga responses ng students in which they believe will make them look good to others. And for that, they don't represent their true opinions or responses. And that's the reason why teachers should avoid social desirability bias when it comes to gathering and interpreting affective data. Because there is a tendency that the students will not give their honest answers to the affective assessment. Here's how to avoid social desirability bias to increase the likelihood of the students to respond honestly. First, you need to make all the students' responses anonymous. Next, you need to apply many procedures or techniques so that the students would think that their information or responses are untraceable and they have the freedom to give a sincere answer or honest feedback. Here are some procedures or techniques to increase the likelihood for honest responses. These are called anonymity enhancement procedures. First, the directions. You, as a teacher, you must give clear directions or instructions that emphasizes or that encourage the students to answer honestly, and that will give assurance that they don't have to worry because their identity is unknown. Second, the response restrictions. In answering the assessment, the students have limitations from giving multiple responses. So there will be no handwriting method. The students can answer only check marks, circling, or shading of preferred answers, and so on. Kaya walang handwriting method kasi yung ibang students naniniwala sila na malalaman or makikilala ng teacher yung identity nila based on their handwriting. If ever that there is a need for handwriting, the teacher will provide separate forms for writing comments. Third, the collection. This method is for the students to think that there are no teacher's pet o yung mga students na favorite ng kanilang teacher. So to avoid that and be fair for all the students, the teacher will provide a box for the collection of the assessment. The teacher should announce the collection method before having students fill out the inventories. So through these procedures or techniques, you should make sure that the students really don't think that there's any way to trace their responses. When to assess affect? You can assess affect before and after instruction. It is for the teacher to recognize the changes in students' affect. There will be also an occasional monitoring in the student's affective status. The teacher can alter or modify his or her instruction or teaching strategies kapag ang students' affect ay inappropriate at kapag yung interest or yung effort ng student sa isang subject ay hindi masyadong successful. Next, the kind of inferences, which are the individually focused inferences and group focused inferences. Mostly, sa cognitive or academic learning area, the teachers makes inferences and decisions para malaman at ma-employ kung ano ba yung appropriate na instruction or teaching strategy that is associated to the knowledge and skills of individual students. While sa affective learning, it is rare or unusual thing to do when the teacher makes inferences and decisions, especially if it's about the knowledge and the skills of individual students. For the affective assessment, it is too complicated. For example, a certain student would not receive a low grade if he or she knows the subject well but hates it. So that's one of the reasons why individually focused inferences are complicated when it comes to affective assessment, because not all students have the same situation or problem to that certain student. So it is highly encouraged to make use of group focused inferences. The teacher can make instructional decisions that goes on in class based on group affective data, because the overall students' responses can make group focus inferences in order to make decisions. There are reasons for arriving at only group-focused inferences in affective assessment. First, individual inferences about the affective status are risky. As I said earlier, individually focused inferences is complicated and also risky because sometimes the students know that answering an affective inventories would not give them low grades. So there is a possibility that they will not answer honestly. Like for some instances, yung pagsagot natin sa isa sa mga survey questionnaire para sa thesis ng ating senior, alam naman natin na wala yung kinalaman sa grades natin. So we didn't read the whole questions and just answered it, and we already know what happened next. The results were inaccurate. Just like using individual focused inferences in affective assessment, if that happens, there will be errors in measurement because the inaccurate responses will only lead to invalid inferences about sa affective status ng students. Next, hindi madaling makakuha ng evidences or inferences ang teacher kapag individually focused ang gagamitin because you need to apply the anonymity. That's why it is better to use group focused inferences. Third, kapag may errors sa individual responses ng students, valid pa rin iyon, especially if it's group focus kasi may tinatawag tayo na 2 positive and 2 negative responses. When we say 2 positive response, even though the students are not identified, there are still some students who have fear to respond honestly kasi baka ma-offend yung teacher nila. On the other hand, when we say 2 negative response, there are some students who will see the assessment as an opportunity para magantihan yung teacher na hindi nila gusto for some reason. Like may pagkukulang yung teacher nila and they take revenge through the assessment. So in group focused, the teacher make inferences in instructional decisions if the responses of the students are 2 positive and 2 negative. Balance pa rin yung effects nito at makakancel out yung inaccurate responses from 2 positive and negative responses. In that way, the teacher can make group-focused inferences about the whole class average response as a reflection of the whole class affective status. In sum, the goal of classroom affective assessment is to make instructional decisions based on group data, not individual evidences of affective status. Although most teachers recognize that students' interests, attitudes, and values are important, however, there are few teachers who promotes an appropriate affect to their students. There will be some negligence, or also called the neglect of affect. The first neglect of affect ay ang affective learning ay hindi masyadong na-emphasize sa curriculum, mostly kasi nakafocus lang sa cognitive or academic learning. Second neglect of affect ay kaya nakafocus sa academic kasi that is what the society wants the students to master, because in cognitive learning, there is so much knowledge and skills that needs to be learned by the students in academic. So kaya hindi na-emphasize ang affective learning. Third, instead of promoting positive student affect, the teachers are so busy finding ways para ma-improve yung scores or performance ng students nila. So the teachers fail to notice the importance of affective learning. So here's why affective learning and assessment is crucial. The presence of an affective assessment instrument, even if it's only a 10-item self-report inventory before and after instruction, is important, both for the teacher and the students. Through affective assessment, the teacher is willing to take action in knowing which of the different activities are appropriate for the affective outcomes. Also, through affective assessment, the teacher will know its importance, like how the student's attitude, interests, and values influence their lives. Affective learning is far more than the cognitive content, because we don't just learn, we will also influence each other's lives. What do classroom teachers really need to know about affective assessment? If you don't measure your students' affective status in a systematic fashion, you're far less likely to emphasize affect instructionally. So when we say systematic fashion, when you do measure or gather and interpret data about the student's affective status, it should be in an efficient way. So without being in systematic fashion, you would not know with certainty kung positive or negative ba yung effect ng instruction or teaching strategy mo sa interest and attitudes ng students mo. So next, use fairly straightforward self-report instruments such as Likert inventories or multifocus affective inventories rather than exotic affective measurement strategies. So exotic, it means unusual strategies or instruments that are only time-consuming and yung inferences nito have uncertain validity. Next, affective assessment devices are too crude, too imprecise. It means the affective assessment devices have lack of accuracy. So you're not allowed to make inferences that is individually focused. Kasi hindi magiging consistent yung results or yung inferences. Group focused inferences are more appropriate. Most teachers do not know how to promote affect instructionally. They don't know how to promote and what are those effective focus procedures or techniques, so a professional learning community would be useful. Teachers should have some solid professional development support to learn how to alter or modify students' attitudes, values, and interests. So that would be all. Thank you.